Unslip your secular silo. Scientism isn't sly, it's stupid. Reproductive rape rights are ridiculous, but it's the genius of generational curses. Raped becomes mother, who becomes murderer, co conspirator in sin and death. Meanwhile, the demon sucks the souls of the rapist, raped, and murdered. Silent screams or pain felt is irrelevant. Intentional harm of innocence is always evil. God's first commandment was be fruitful and multiply. Abortion is straight satanic script. Sacrifice your babies, then die off. Gen Z is missing a third of themselves. Infanticide is not rare, it's routine, industrialized, institutionalized, and intellectualized. Silicon Valley dreams of immortality while simultaneously sabotaging their own seed. US replacement rate is 2 to 1, but America is at 1 to 6. The math is mass murder. The answer, extinction. The empty classrooms and nurseries aren't a mystery, they're the receipts. My body, my choice is a stupid psyop for feeble-minded females. What about the most innocent, most defenseless baby's body? What of their choice? Would they ever choose to be chopped up, sucked out, and flushed down? Would you? Fetus means bringing forth of life. Abort means to end life. Our dead get graves, but our unborn are simply deleted. It was as if they never were, but their souls still are. For every murdered baby, 1,000 angels weep, but in hell, 1,000,000 demons cheer. There is one way out of the pit. Yeshua. Repent, confess, and ask pardon to him. Or refuse, and in death, join the million. Retired soldier, special agent, spy, turned whistleblower warrior, served in sabotage, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption, as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and I choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Good to be with you. Lots going on. Before I get going, please see the staybrewed.com great coffee. It is handcrafted, small batch roasted coffee. This we just got. It's from the Wire family. You can get it you can get teamamericacoffe.com. You can go to staybrewed.com. This is We Three Beans, special holiday roast. My wife and I absolutely love this coffee. It's hand labeled, of the date and time. And then we grind it daily. And I am a coffee snob, having had a lot of bad cop coffee and military coffee and Indian coffee and cowboy coffee over the years. So staybrewed.com, great coffee. Or you can go to jeffreyprather.com /shop and get Prather private label. That's my special blend in the jeffreyprather.com /shop. You can also go in there and get your Faraday bags. Here's this new Faraday key case that I really love that has locking magnets to it. Really sharp. You can go in there and get your Curative Bay nasal spray for the cold areas. Lots of gifts, plus lots of t-shirts, caps, all kinds of my books, all kinds of great Christmas if you're looking for special Christmas gifts for the liberty-minded. So lots to cover today. Going to jump right in. Trump, deep state competitor or collaborator? And also the first Jewish POTUS, Trump. FBI arrests the J6 pipe bomber. PFIZER mRNA in 50% of unjabbed pregnant women. And Trump ends the Biden auto pen, but arrests nobody. And then we'll have author Dennis Brennan of the Swamp Strikes Back guesting. So first, I got to continue to talk about Zionism. And if you haven't, go to my X. Because of the house fire, I don't have my two screens. I can't present stuff for you, but go to my X account, my Twitter account, follow me, subscribe, also on Rumble as well. Please do. I'm also streaming right now to Facebook and to X as well. But look at the story where there is a Jew named David wearing a kippah being interviewed on a 9/11 radio show about the blood-stained mattresses taken out of the Chabad Lubavitch tunnel in New York a while back. And he is explaining what is going on there in detail. And he just matter-of-factly says, yeah, that's blood. And we had recently deceased Chabad Lubavitch corpses down there, and we were doing bloodletting rituals on them. And the reason they were doing bloodletting rituals on them was to bring back their Rebbe or Rabbi Sneerson, who they think was the Messiah. And so they are trying to reanimate a corpse. This is necromancy. This is zombies. This is golem. Now, not all Jews believe this, but Chabad Lubavitch is a very large and popular Jewish sect or cult with a lot of power in America. And this guy's just clearly explaining that's what they're doing. So American Christian Zionists, you okay with that? As a Christian, you cannot be okay with that. You're forbidden to do anything with spirits of the dead. But, you know, that's the same, I guess, American Christian Zionists who are always quoting Ezekiel 37 while they ignore Yeshua, saying that the Israelites are no longer the chosen people. But check that out because it is really mind-blowing to see what these things are, what Jews really believe. Not all Jews, but the Chabad Lubavitch sect, certainly, that there was a Messiah. He died. They want to reanimate him, bring back to life. Of course, that seems to be a pale mimicry of the resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, which the Shroud of Turin is evidence that he rose, and the Sidarium of Oviedo is evidence that he died. So last cast, and on Sunday, I presented my sermon and my Substack on Trump, first Jewish president. And I also reached out to a couple friends to republicize that because I think it's a really important message. And my friend Mike Adams did so immediately. Many thanks to Mike. And so I'm going to summarize that article because I think it's so important. And I had a real good Team America meeting the other day, but some people still hadn't even read my Substack or sermon yet, even though I specifically asked them to. So if they haven't read it, then I'm sure some of you guys haven't read it either. So I'm going to summarize what Mike Adams' writers wrote about my sermon and Substack, Trump, first American Jewish president, which is what Mark Levin says, by the way, as well. Despite President Donald Trump's public statements affirming Christianity, Jeffrey Prather argues his policies and alliance functionally prioritize Zionist interests, making him a de facto Jewish president in practice. Prather cites Trump's embassy move to Jerusalem alongside ties to Benjamin Netanyahu and Zionist-aligned advisor Susan Wiles as evidence that his administration elevates Israeli interests above biblical principles, harming Palestinian Christians. Prather condemns Pentecostal leaders for distorting scripture to justify unconditional support for Israel, invoking Galatians 3:28 to argue against Jewish exceptionalism in Christian theology. Prather warns Trump's concealment of his religious identity aligns with broader efforts to replace Jesus in America, calling it censorship and anti-Christic sins. Judaism denies Christ's divinity. The critique highlights a growing rift among conservatives, questioning whether devotion to Trump compromises adherence to Christian faith and truth, especially as Zionist globalist agendas allegedly undermine U.S. sovereignty. Former intelligence officer turned conservative commentator Jeffrey Prather has critiqued President Donald Trump for prioritizing Zionist interests over Christian values, a claim that has stirred controversy among Trump's evangelical supporters. The host of the Prather Point outlined his claim in a Substack post published on Monday, December 1st. Prather's argument centered on Trump's religious identity. Despite the president's public statements affirming America's need for Jesus, Prather argues that Trump is functionally America's first Jewish president. Prather cites Trump's close ties to Zionist figures like Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, White House Chief Staff Susan Wiles, who incidentally helped run Netanyahu's campaign. The former intelligence officer also mentioned Trump's pro-Israel policies, particularly the real estate mogul's relocation of the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem. Prather linked this to a broader concerns about Christian Zionism, accusing Pentecostal leaders of distorting scripture to support Israeli policies at the expense of Palestinian Christians. I called upon Trump as our commander-in-chief to lead by example, but that won't happen because Trump does not practice Yeshua protocols, even though Trump has said America needs Jesus as a savior, Prather wrote. While Trump has acknowledged America needs Jesus as a savior, he is on public record admitting he is not a Christian. What is he? Trump isn't a Christian. He is Israel first. And I said he is Jewish. Prather invoked biblical allegories, including the parable of the wicked tenants, to argue that modern Judaism, as practiced today, deviates from the ancient Hebrew religion. He cited the Apostle Paul's letters to the Galatians. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free, nor male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus, Galatians 3:28. The commentator also alleged that there is a more sinister purpose behind Trump concealing his own religious identity, noting that as part of the plan of replacing Jesus from the nation, it is censorship and ultimately anti-Christic because Judaism denies Christ, and it is the latest betrayal of those MAGA, Make America Great Again cultists who believe in Trump instead of having faith in Christ. According to BrightU.AI's Enoch engine, Trump is criticized as a Zionist because his policies and alliances heavily favor Israel's interests, aligning with global Zionist agendas that prioritize geopolitical dominance over American sovereignty. Some argue this mirrors historical patterns where Zionist-aligned figures manipulate conflicts to destabilize nations while advancing Israel's expansion, such as the Nakba under the guise of political leadership. Prather's message underscores a growing rift within conservative and Christian circles over Trump's legacy and Israel's geopolitical role. While some evangelicals remain staunchly pro-Israel, others, like Prather, I'm not an evangelical, argue that uncritical support for Zionism undermines Christian principles. Whether Prather's warnings gain traction or fade into obscurity may hinge on how deeply these theological and political fault lines continue to fracture. In an era where faith, politics, and power intersect explosively, Prather's claims force a reckoning. Can loyalty to a political leader coexist with unwavering devotion to religious truth? And that's a great point because a lot of people get very upset when I criticize Trump because they have really made Trump their replacement Messiah. And they're also too afraid to face the fact that Trump has betrayed them. But I'll tell you, I'm now listening to this Nick Fuentes kid, and he's, very critical of Trump. And I think that really shows an example of the younger generation that is just so cynical because they have been lied to for so long, by both sides. So we're going to get into that even more. Trump deep state competitor or collaborator and first Jewish POTUS Trump. But the FBI has arrested somebody for the J6 pipe bombing. Federal agents have arrested Brian Cole, a Virginia man, in connection with the pipe bombs placed outside the Republican Democratic National Party headquarters, January 5th, 2021, the night before the January 6th Capitol attack. Cole is described as an anarchist sympathizer taken into custody before dawn, December 4th, 2025, ending a 5-year investigation. That's not true. They closed their investigation. They stopped investigating. The arrest follows a $500,000 FBI reward, release of some surveillance footage, very limited. The bombs were made of galvanized steel pipe. They never detonated. Surveillance showed, very blurry images. Cole has been charged in connection with the explosives, and his appearance in court was expected later on December 4th, although the full list of charges has not yet been announced. And now the Blaze, had circulated that it was a former Capitol police officer who now works for CIA campus security. They're saying that's false. I'm not saying that's false at all. I'm saying I doubt if this guy is the real bomber, just like I don't think Crook was at Butler. And the furry who supposedly shot Kirk, that story has fallen apart as well. So I'm wondering how long it will take for this story to fall apart as well. So that's very likely. but that this is a cover up. Why? Because the SBI must be really desperate to regain a shred of authenticity, because no one is believing them at all. Remember, the kitchen timer on the bombs were set to 20 minutes and they were there overnight. They had 20 minutes left, rather. They were set for a 60-minute timer, but they were there overnight. And so the FBI lab did not say that they would actually function as bombs, and they weren't bombs. The FBI has some kind of phallic obsession with pipe bombs. Everywhere you see, they are always doing pipe bombs. So we'll see how long that story takes to fall apart, just like the Crooks story fell apart, just like the Ruthie story fell apart, just like the Kirk shooter story fell apart. And the head of security going on, Sean Ryan, was a disaster as well. But this is also very, very important, is there is a breaking study that the PFIZER mRNA found, it was found in over 88% of human placentas, sperm, blood, and then 50% of unvaccinated, not unvaccinated, unjabbed pregnant women. So this is not poor research or sloppy science. This is deep state designed democide, depopulation for repopulation. Rub out those pesky small business entrepreneurs powering the American economy. So there are only oligarch elite rich and the peasant class. Recall the illegals infiltrated were not required to be jabbed. They are the field hands. And what was Trump done? Has Trump done to reform and reject big pharma? In September 2025, Trump announced a landmark agreement with Pfizer to lower prescription drug prices for American patients. Under the agreement, Pfizer will provide all state Medicare programs. So Trump is moving hand in hand with Big Pharma Pfizer. The same Big Pharma Pfizer that is depopulating via the mRNA. So for years, the public was told a simple story that the mRNA stays in the arm, degrades within hours, never enters the bloodstream, cannot shed or be transferred. We've covered all of this extensively. But a new peer-reviewed study published in Annals of Case Reports titled "Detection of Pfizer BioNTech Messenger RNA COVID-19 Vaccine in Human Blood, Placenta, and Semen" ends that narrative. Researchers from Bar Ilan University and several Israel medical centers used nested PCR combined with Sanger sequencing, a far more sensitive and specific method than the standard PCR used in earlier studies, to test for Pfizer mRNA in human tissues from 34 participants, including 22 pregnant women, 4 male sperm donors, 8 samples, and 8 additional adults. Their findings are worrisome. 88% of pregnant women vaccinated within the last 100 days showed detectable Pfizer mRNA in both blood and placental tissues. And of course, that's what you're going to see: all of the blood clots, the embolisms, and the heart problems. Among male sperm donors, 100% of those who produced sperm had vaccine mRNA in their sperm cells. They're passing it along, which is the death plan. This is the depopulation, the democide by the government. And 50% had it detectable in seminal fluid long after vaccination. Even more concerning, Pfizer mRNA was detected in 50% of the unvaccinated women tested, 2 in both placenta and blood, and 1 in blood alone. So they are so demonic and so evil that they're going after unvaccinated, those who were smart, who chose not to be jabbed and killed. They're going after their babies as well. This is not by accident. This is pharmacia. This is sorcery. So most striking of all, the mRNA was still present in 50% of the individuals more than 200 days after injection. This is the clearest evidence to date that the injection does not degrade within hours. The implications are enormous. And that means that 88% of women vaccinated within 100 days of delivery had detectable mRNA in both blood and placenta. Even after 251 days, RNA vaccine was still found in some placentas. This directly contradicts every official statement claiming mRNA does not reach. So this is fraud. This should be criminal. It'll certainly be civil. suits. In mRNA detected in sperm and seminal fluid, 3 produced viable sperm, and 100% of them had Pfizer mRNA in their sperm cells, passing it on, killing off multi-generations. Like, this is another form of abortion. 2 had detectable mRNA in seminal plasma. 1 man vaccinated 168 days earlier still had mRNA present in sperm. Half of the individuals tested more than 200 days after the vaccination still had detectable Pfizer mRNA. Perhaps the most shocking finding, 50% of unvaccinated pregnant women had detectable Pfizer mRNA. 2 unvaccinated pregnant women had Pfizer mRNA in both their blood and placenta. A third unvaccinated woman had mRNA in her blood alone. The authors state plainly the source of this RNA has yet to be investigated. This appears to be the first direct evidence of mRNA vaccine shedding. Shedding is real. This concludes it. These carry enormous implications. They confirm that mRNA does not stay at the ejection site, does not rapidly degrade. It does not, if it does reach the placenta, it does stick around. This verifies the biological mechanism behind delayed serious adverse events and also explains transgenerational adverse effects. Transgenerational adverse effects. Just as I said at the beginning, is reproductive rape rights are ridiculous, but it is the genius of generational curses. This is a scientific pharmacia, sorcery, intergenerational curse. So this verifies the biological mechanism behind delayed serious adverse events and also explains transgenerational adverse effects, why babies born to vaccinated mothers are now dying at high excess rates even years earlier. And beyond these concerns, the unvaccinated positives raise the specter that shedding is indeed real. So, time to shun the jabbed, shun the vaccinated, not because they shunned us, and family members shunned us, but for the safety of your babies and your children and your family, because shedding is real. And your primary duty is to life. There are 2 ways, the way of life and the way of death, and they are vastly different. So that too is very, very important to understand and to grasp. So see you guys on Rumble. Don't see anybody on X yet anyway. Let me make sure. Oh yeah, I do. Let me see. Susan Dell, NEE, Susan Line. Oop. Is Jewish. She married Michael Dell, himself Jewish. Oh, you're talking about Wiles here. In a traditional Jewish ceremony, blending their shared heritage. Got it. N1 methyl pseudoreadine was used in Pfizer mRNA. Okay. You guys are smarter than me. I don't know what that means exactly. But happy to have a conversation and take your questions. So Trump, I've made the allegation that he's the first Jewish president, but I'm also asking, is he a competitor with the deep state or a collaborator? I think during his first administration, he was a competitor. I think now he is a collaborator that he has been captured. And the stuff I say, you really won't hear hardly anywhere else, because everybody else is trying to be popular. Everybody else is trying to get more likes and subscribers. My subscribers are way down, by the way. I know I'm being shadow banned. I know I'm being censored, but I'm sure people don't like that I'm saying these hard truths. But regardless, I am going to say these hard truths anyway, whether you like it or not. I'm going to tell you the truth. That was my promise to you, and I am going to continue to keep that promise. If you want to see the backup for what I'm saying on the show, then you can subscribe to jeffreyprather.locals.com for $9 a month or $90 a year. You'll get basic curated news stories. If you want more than that, you can go to patreon.com/jeffreyprather. And for $5, you get the created news stories. For $15, you get special resources. And for $25, you get daily training videos with me. So, getting back to Trump as competitor or collaborator, and I'm saying first administration competitor, second now collaborator. All you got to do is go look at the deep state. The deep state, in my terminology, is the intelligence community. Of course, I've been in the intelligence community since 1984, when I was commissioned a second lieutenant military intelligence branch in the United States Army. I'm still doing competitive intelligence in the GRIN space now, genetics, robotics, information, nanotechnology, but only for the good guys. So I have a lot of experience in intelligence. I was a DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, branch chief of the Global Operations Center. I have been a collector as well, and I've also worked as a DEA special agent in lots of intelligence centers, high intensity drug trafficking area centers. So the deep state, the intelligence agencies run rampant on their own. There is no check on them. Nobody knows their budgets. They only tell Congress what they want to tell Congress. And in recent years, and I'll just talk about the CIA, has told many, many lies. Former CIA Director John Brennan conspired with the intelligence community to frame President Trump as a Russian spy. 51 prominent intelligence officials worked to discredit true reporting with regards to Hunter Biden's criminally damning laptop, lying, not insinuating, that the contents of the laptop were part of a Russian disinformation campaign. And again, Russia is not our enemy. Ukraine, Azov Nazis are in league with Zionist Israel, by the way. But this was a clear effort to sabotage President Trump and stage a coup. This is very similar to the coups that are staged by the CIA all over the world. The same thing that was staged in Ukraine. America's spy agencies also unlawfully targeted Americans, influenced elections, and arguably engaged in an attempted coup against President Trump and his administrations. They spied on elected officials, political candidates, and American voters with total disregard for the Fourth Amendment's requirements. So what happened with all of this spying? Nothing has happened with it. Even Gabbard has brought forth allegations of this, turned them over to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. And what has happened? Nothing has happened. Why has nothing happened? Because Pam Bondi is Trump's Attorney General. And so the deep state takes care of its own. Nothing changes with the uniparty. The FBI gets a bigger headquarters, two bigger headquarters. The CIA goes on doing whatever they want, the NSA, the Intelligence Committee, and there is no there is no retribution. There is no justice. There is no charges. They brought the charges against Comey at the very, very last minute. Give me some of that. Says the IC is an exclusive club and we, the people, are not in it. That is very, very true. And I'm not in it anymore as well. So what do we do about that? Because I always want to present answers, options, and solutions. Well, we're doing what we're doing right here. I am billing myself as America's intelligence officer, and I am calling out the truth, the ruthless truth, the intelligence, whether anybody likes it or not, about Trump, about the intelligence. A lot of people still just want to say, oh, everything's great. And it is not. This second administration is very much failing in all these regards. Fauci hasn't been brought to justice. Biden hasn't been brought to justice. Obama hasn't been brought to justice. Brennan hasn't been brought to justice. The Comey charges were weak and dismissed, and they were purposefully done at the last minute. None of this is happening. All of this could be happening because liberty luminaries like me and others have long collected all of the evidence required. They don't have to do anything. It was already done, but they're not doing anything because they are part of it. They are captured by it. They are co-conspirators with it. They are collaborators with it. And that is why Team America's new mission is partly strategically to raise, inspire, and inoculate next generations from the ground up with the Christic commandments and the 10 Mosaic commandments and the 2 indigenous commandments to infiltrate these corrupted institutions and change them from the inside out, ground up, to St. Martin them, just as St. Martin had to join the Roman cavalry, but was a Christian. And that's how Rome was co-opted by Christians when no one could conquer them. They were co-opted. So that is very important to understand, because my chaplaincy message fits with my Team America message, fits with my Prather Point message as well. And I recently got an email saying, hey, listening to your recent episode, I was struck by your discussion around 2 scripts, Trump's derangement versus devotion syndrome, and the candid take on the deep state's ongoing role in steering investigations. Your straightforward approach to exposing the machinations behind the current events to exactly what makes the Prather Point a must listen for anyone trying to sift through the confusion. Given your focus on the hidden currents shaping American politics, I believe my perspective would be a strong fit for your audience. As an attorney, historian, and author, my work dives into the persistent patterns that link our nation's past power struggles with today's high-stakes political battles. My latest book, DC Swamp Strikes Back, Aaron Burr, Donald Trump, and Their Similar Battles, examines how figures like Burr and Trump share remarkably similar fights against entrenched influence and narrative manipulation. I bring historical insight into how these enduring themes continue to shape our republic, illuminating just how much of what we encounter today echoes hard lessons of the past. And then he says, I'd be honored to join the Prather Point. And so I checked out his stuff. That made a lot of sense to me, and certainly is very relevant to what I'm discussing right now, where I don't see anybody else discussing this. I see people saying the Islamification of America is coming. Yeah, certainly that's coming. The Zionization of America is already here. The control by the deep state is already here. And then people want to have another seminar by former FBI agents about the Muslims coming into the country. Well, who brought the Muslims, the Muslim terrorists into the country? The CIA. Who let them stay here? The FBI. And so you're going to have another seminar from some ex-FBI agents. It's a dangle. Sure, Islam is a problem. It is an evil religion, although Muslims are not all bad or evil, but Islam is an evil religion because Muhammad is a self-professed pedophile and was satanically possessed. He says that, but that doesn't mean all Muslims are bad. Just like LDS has been proven to be a phony religion, but that doesn't mean all Mormons are bad. But the corruption of the system is endemic. And I think it is always important to look back at history so that we can understand where we're at. Because if you don't understand history, you certainly can't understand the future at all. So I want to welcome Dennis Brennan, the author, to the show. Dennis, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Jeffrey. I appreciate it. And I was listening to your show there while I was waiting, and very interesting.
Well, feel free to comment on anything I've covered already. I'm happy to have your perspective, and it doesn't have to agree with mine.
Well, I'll tell you, you have a much better understanding of the deep state. I'm not sure that I'm there with you yet on, Trump in the second term. I mean, when I wrote the book, I wrote it prior to his election,
right.
Updated it right at the end. So we really didn't see what would happen. I was surprised by some of the choices for the administration, especially law enforcement with Pam Bondi, the FBI, for instance, with Kash Patel. Not that I have anything against them, but I was surprised by their choices. I think part of that, maybe I give Trump a bigger break than I should. He was maybe burnt so badly with his choices last time that he had to take people that he thought he knew well.
No, that makes total sense. And Wiles ran a tight ship and said no more leaks and no more traitors. And I get that totally. But the choices look like talk show choices. Patel is pathetic. He can't do. He doesn't know the job at all. And Bongino's he was a Secret Service agent. He was a 1811 like I was, but he's very totally incompetent, obviously. But most importantly is the Attorney General slot, because that's the big slot. And there were lots of better choices. Ken Paxton for one, I think, and Bondi had already shown that she wouldn't do much in Florida.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Paxton. I was talking to someone, the Texas connection. I had mentioned Abbott as somebody. He's also a former AG there. And I was impressed with him.
Abbott's very corrupt, has let all the border stuff happen, helped infill more illegals. Unimpressive as far as I'm concerned. Paxton took on PFIZER.
That's true. But, every attorney general sued PFIZER. I mean, that wasn't, that's just one big lawsuit that never really had to go anywhere except everybody file and they're going to settle. Abbott, I don't know. I thought he had a lot of good points. I think the one thing that he did that really maybe it was more political than legal, though, when he was shipping up illegals to places, I'm in Illinois, Chicago, New York, because the people that live by me or the people that vote Democrat probably didn't have the same idea of how illegal immigration had infiltrated the country. If you're in Texas, Arizona, a lot of southern states, you know what's going on. Here, it's kind of far away from you and you think it's somebody else's problem. But Abbott kind of made it the blue state problem too. And I believe he was the first one to do that. So I gave him some.
Well, yeah, but so one of my regulars on X says Abbott is a WEF puppet, and I'm trying to get the other remark there. Paxton took on election fraud as well. From a former 1811 special agent perspective, Abbott is a co-conspirator in illegal immigration. When he transports them to other states, interstates, I'd arrest him.
Oh, yeah, the negative. Well, I guess it was more, like I said, political. And politically, I think it helped Trump a great deal with the votes here. I think it turned some people, even in a minority community, against the whole legal immigration that they hadn't seen before.
Well, I think it was a stupid pull. I think there's a lot of 95% of folks I think are fake, whether it's pastors, politicians, generals, whatever. And I don't see any truth in Abbott. I see a lot of truth in Paxton. I'm very glad that you're open to a change in perspective. And admitting that you wrote the book, before really the second term got started. So I've seen because what I'm seeing when I look at Nick Fuentes and other young former liberty luminaries that I know is they're very cynical. And why not? They've been lied to by both sides. They're not going to be able to have the income and the standard of living that, well, I'm older than you. I'm 68, but previous generations have had. So they're very skeptical. Like, Nick Fuentes is even more critical of Trump than I am. And so I wanted to bring that up to talk about that. There's an intergenerational difference there, where there's the never Trumpers, orange man bad, it's a syndrome, it's delusional. And then there's also the Trump is the Messiah. He can do no wrong. I guess there's still the guys out there was like, hey, he's playing fifth dimensional chess or something. Kind of late for that one.
No, I think the generational issue is really a problem. And I think it was, Charlie Kirk had talked about this.
Yes.
And it's really something that hits home when you start looking at it, because originally when you look at it from the perspective of you or me, when you first start looking at it, it's probably, oh, come on, we all had it tough, which we all did, unless you were, born like J.B. Pritzker with billions in your pocket. You probably did have it tough. It was a struggle before you bought a house and so forth. The problem they have now, though, is it's hard to even find a house. I mean, even if you're doing well and you have two incomes and so forth, to find a house to start off is difficult. So you end up paying a lot more because there's a shortage of homes. And I think part of that, is it's based on, we have a lot of illegal immigrants here who are in housing of some sort. Some of it is we have to get back to developing real estate.
Well, so see, you're right there. This is supposed to be Trump's lane.
It is. I think the solution. He talked about federal land. I'm not sure how that would work and how you would do that.
Well, that's just talk. There's nothing happening. I mean, the federal government is holding too much land out west. Every Westerner knows that. They've been holding it forever. They're not going to let go of it. They're not supposed to have it. But instead, we bomb Iran. We set up CENTCOM in Gaza. More Yemen stuff. Send carrier groups. That's not what people voted for Trump to do by any means.
Well, and I think it gets into the mindset of building your legacy or thinking you're building your legacy rather than solving the problems that the maybe MAGA voters or Trump voters, whatever you want to call it, wanted. And especially the younger voters that came over and some of the movements and demographics from the first election to the second, that he now has to concentrate on. I mean, in 2026, big election coming up, although I think some people would say, what's the difference? Nothing's getting done anyhow. Some of that, I think it's just easier for the administration to do foreign policy than it is to get these big things done, domestically. And
well, that's a valid point. Commander-in-Chief has a lot more range overseas. That's a valid perspective, but that's not what he said he would do.
Yeah, well, we know by now he says a lot of things. That's not a big surprise, whether you love him or hate him. I think some people take it literally. I'm going to stop the Ukraine war on the first day. Did anybody really believe that? I mean,
yeah, but it's far from the first day, and
no.
Still sending money. I think someplace after one of the assassination attempts, he became captured by the deep state somehow, and is now a collaborator. But I'm glad you're willing to address these things and understand the importance of these things. And I also want to look at your historical perspective, because I think that's always very fascinating, because I'm always comparing the fallen Roman Republic for the fallen American Republic. And I say the fallen Roman Empire with the failing American Empire, which was co-opted by Christian martyrs. And I think that's happening now with Charlie Kirk, the first of the modern martyrs. The Praetorian Guard that would decide who the next Caesar is the FBI, the CIA. That's my perspective that I talk about quite a bit. But I think it's very much worth looking historically. So explain to us your analogy with Aaron Burr. And he did the deal. Didn't he do the duel with Hamilton on the lawn as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Aaron Burr is mostly known for is that duel, where Hamilton had challenged Burr to a duel over, imagine this, they had petty politics back then. And it was over petty politics, a letter that was written into a newspaper. Burr wouldn't take back what was said. So Hamilton challenged him to a duel. Hamilton lost the duel, died the next day. They've tried to revise history. The musical, if you saw that, has it in there. And even some of the historians that have written about Hamilton have said, oh, Hamilton shot the bullet in the ear or he shot it into a tree. You know, there was no real evidence of that. And this all to make Burr look like the bad guy because Burr shot him in the chest. You know, it was a duel. That's the whole point. You're supposed to shoot at them.
If a guy so I'm a firearms instructor, special agent, I'm a pistol expert and rifle expert. You know, if you raise a weapon at me, I'm going to shoot you.
Well, right. And in self-defense classes, don't they teach everybody, you know, if you're going to point your gun,
oh yeah,
sure
of course,
you're shooting it. Don't just point your gun.
Essential: never muzzle what you are not willing to destroy. Although that's one of my big articles in SWAT. People still do that. They should be covering at the feet, but when the weapon comes up, the gunfight's on, as opposed to what you see in movies all the time.
Well, sure. And I think, you know, Burr, that's what he's really known for, the duel. But there's much more to him. You know, he was the vice president for Jefferson. I detail in the book how really Burr never really gets credit for this, but he is more responsible for Jefferson's victory than anybody else. They ran together once, the first time, against John Adams, who had been the vice president of Washington. Adams defeated Jefferson, but Jefferson at that time, if you got the second amount of votes, even though you're the other party, you become the vice president. So Jefferson was the vice president to Adams. He then ran against him and had Burr as his candidate again as vice president. During that time, those 4 years where Adams was serving and Jefferson was serving as vice president, Burr went back to New York, changed the New York General Assembly to be elected towards people that were more in line with him and Jefferson. He was successful doing that. At that time, electoral votes were decided by the General Assembly of each state, not by the votes in the state. So General Assembly there voted for Jefferson and Burr. Jefferson defeated Adams in that race. He tied with Burr, which again, you know, we weren't perfect. Everybody talks about how, you know, the founders were perfect. It wasn't a perfect system because even though Jefferson was running for president, the two, Burr and Jefferson, had the same vote. So it had to go to a vote in Congress. And Burr started making enemies when that happened because he didn't do anything to dissuade people from voting for him. He went back to New York again. And he sat back in New York. Jefferson made some deals to become president. And then they served 4 years until Jefferson dumped him. And, you know, from there, you could tell, like when he went to Washington, he found out that everybody's not your friend. I think there's a correlation. Trump went into Washington the first time very naively, I think, believing.
I agree with that. I agree. Yeah. He said he believed in the institutional integrity. I think all these movies about the FBI and CIA, that they're always propagandized. But having been inside both, I can tell you, no, they're not like that at all.
Right. And you'll find out you don't have friends. You'll find out that these agencies, you know, might not be on the same track as you are, doing things that you know, wouldn't approve of. You're certainly not in charge. You know, they think they're in charge in their minds. So I think Trump found that out. Burr found it out. And they also found out that the politicians that are in your party and in the other party are certainly not with you, no matter how close you are with them. Burr had a lot of infighting from what, you know, I would call the Virginia Mafia, Madison, Monroe. They had an idea of having the presidency for many years, which in fact they did, you know, but their idea was to exclude everybody else. And Burr was kind of the, you know, guy that was causing the trouble being there as vice president and the likely successor unless they could dump him, which they did.
So you call that the deep state. I'm not sure I would call that the deep state because, again, I think the deep state is the intelligence community. I think
I agree with that. The institutions are the deep state. I think what I'm talking about is bigger, the swamp. It's the politicians, it's the lobbyists now, it's the media. You know, I have some time spent in the book talking about the media then and now, you know, and how they interact with the whole swamp. I think the deep state is probably just limited to those intelligence agencies, the military, and so forth. I wouldn't go into further, all the politicians making it bigger.
So and I agree with you that Trump was naive. He said that he believed in those institutions initially, and so you're making the analogy that Burr did as well, or
Yeah.
Burr was just nonchalant.
Yeah, Burr was a big believer in the the integrity of the institutions. Now, for Burr, he was charged with treason twice. They claimed, and it's stuff I think we all forget. If we learned it in school, I hate to say my teachers didn't teach me it, because they probably did, and I probably didn't hear them, or you just can't remember all of this history. But there's something called the Burr conspiracy, where he's allegedly the guy behind this movement, him and a friend of his who's a military man, that they were going to form their own army and attack the southwestern part of what's now known as the United States, but was under Spanish control and included Mexico. That he was charged with. The first time it was dismissed for lack of jurisdiction because they had him in the wrong state. The second time, they brought him back to Washington, where he faced trial and he was acquitted. But he put his faith in all those institutions. For him, it kind of worked out legally. He was an attorney. He believed, the law would work out. But in doing so, you're spending a lot of money. He was bankrupted. He was ruined politically because, what we would call the deep state, those, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General or Justice Department, the president, Jefferson, was directing some of this, much like Biden directed some of the lawfare against Trump. And, nobody's going to admit it.
And the treason parallel is very interesting. The treason allegation parallels are very interesting. I do remember that now. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start reading about it, you go, okay, I think I probably heard that, but I didn't, but it's something, everybody gets lost in the duel, because the duel is, it's movie-ish. It's, people look at that and go, yeah, I remember the duel. I don't know why we remember things like that. If in fact it was true, and, I started this from the basis of not knowing whether, Burr was guilty or not. Burr denied it throughout his life. The only time that he said anything that could be maybe construed as admitting it was on near his deathbed. We were now in this Spanish-American War, where the U.S. and Mexico were basically fighting over this territory, and Burr made a wisecrack that he was just 40 years early on doing that, but he never really said he did it. He always denied that he would rather die than do something that was treasonous against the United States. He was a military guy, he fought in the Revolutionary War. Others have, convicted him by innuendo. I look at it like, hey, there's not enough evidence to convict the guy. You can believe it, and some do. There's others that think there's historians that say he was totally innocent and was set up by General Wilkinson, who was supposedly his co-conspirator, and who, basically brought the charges to Jefferson to try to benefit himself.
That sounds like General Miley with Trump.
Right. So that's the thing. There's a lot of comparisons where you see what's going on. And that's why Burr stood out to me. People have asked me, well, how does he compare with a vice president, as if that's not a big spot? I'm like, well, that's the guy that I see the correlation with, not other presidencies. Perhaps others see something different, but that's what I saw.
Well, and also trying to, so you say Burr was financially broken, and that's what they do. They try to do that to me. They do that to Trump, is throw lawsuits at you because they have lawyers on staff, but you got to pay out of pocket.
Sure. And you saw with Trump when he was out of office, when you have that, you have criminal charges, you have 4 cases going on, you have civil suits everywhere. You have even some of your own friends, Michael Cohen, testifying against you. it becomes difficult. And for most of us, that's going to be almost impossible, right? I mean, people often ask, why did someone plead guilty to a charge, a federal charge? Because they have a 92% win record, and you probably will be convicted, and you'll be broke by the time it's over. So some people.
No, that's right.
Say,
I've worked with a lot of AUSAs and some U.S. attorneys, and they don't bring charges unless they can make them work.
Right,
That's really true.
Well, yeah, and it's it's not just to drag you through the mud. They're going to break you. They have a lot of evidence, and so what do? If you're a defendant, you might take your best deal, and
Well, yeah, I wouldn't, but I was never charged, never been convicted, but they certainly tried under Eric Holder and DOJ and DEA. Give me some of that. It says 56 viewing and only 7 likes. Yeah, and only 56 viewing. I'm very much censored and shadow banned these days. We always have like 300 on here before. Lawfare essentially reduced to economic warfare. Yeah, that's very true. Give me some of that. So do you see that same thing happening with Trump? That he's going to be financially broken?
I think Trump is fighting back on that idea. They certainly wanted that, and I think they moved their cases quicker. We complain about the cases now, whether it's Comey or Attorney General not moving fast enough. But really, on the other side, a lot of people who were anti-Trump during those 4 years were wondering why they weren't moving quicker against Trump. And by the time, they were able to delay things, none of the cases except for, the New York stuff in state court really moved. And, I think, Trump is going to have the problem because they're already talking about it, not only personally, but now they're even talking about the attacks on the Venezuelan drug boats off the coast, that they'll go after military people. And I'm thinking, boy, Trump is going to have to make a lot of, pardons, almost like Biden did, ahead of when he leaves office.
Well, I don't think that will work as a former military officer, especially since the precedent established under Obama for droning civilians was already set so strongly by his Star Chamber National Security Council. And here you've got a designated, terrorist organizations who are running not just drugs, but fentanyl, which is really bioweapons. Fentanyl, I think, is just a bioweapon masquerading as a drug. I never made one fentanyl arrest. I did cocaine and marijuana, some black tar heroin. But I don't think that legally, I don't think those arguments have much standing.
As far as charges, you mean, against the?
Yeah.
Oh, I would agree, but that doesn't mean they don't bring them against you. I mean,
oh no, true.
Some of those cases against Trump, like now the Georgia case is gone. Well, they're all gone, really, but they were very weak as far as legally. And I don't have a problem going after a president if you have him on real criminal charges, but you should have, substantial charges if we're going to charge a president.
Well, that's my real complaint, is that you've got Biden on videotape extorting a Ukrainian attorney general and bragging about it. You've got Burisma evidence. You've got Chinese espionage evidence. And, where is the FBI and where is the attorney general going after the Biden crime family? Why has that not happened? There's only one plausible explanation, is because they are cooperating with that. Now, I've heard, I had my friend Ed Manderstiel on, who said, Israel might be threatening America with nukes that have been brought in. But maybe he's being held hostage in that way. Maybe that's what the golden pager was about. But the fact remains, there's no charges against Fauci either. There's No charges against the 50 so-called intelligence professionals with the Hunter laptop. Where's the Department of Justice? Where's the Attorney General? And where is Trump's impetus to do this?
Yeah. Well, I think, like we discussed, he's been involved in a lot of the foreign affairs. You're probably damned if you do and damned if you don't, because people will talk about you're doing the same. Well, they're already talking about you're going after your enemies. I think, is there another explanation? Perhaps it's so ingrained in the FBI and other law enforcement, the Attorney General, that even one individual or two, like the FBI, who puts your two top people in there, but how many people are in the FBI that are actually making decisions? And can you slow it down? If your boss tells you, I want you to do something,
sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Patel and Bongino aren't in charge of anything. They just stand around and whatever they are given, they just say, oh yeah, that's it. There's no Epstein charges, and for me, that's really the line in the sand that we're going to permit as a formerly virtuous populace that is necessary for a republic, the kidnap, rape, and murder of little girls to support intelligence agencies, which are not constitutional, by any means. But I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I know Washington ran his own intelligence network. He was Agent 711, the Culpeper stuff. I don't know what was going on at the Burr time, if there was much of a structure then. Do you know anything about that?
I don't think there was much of a structure then. Unfortunately, I didn't see anything like that.
Interesting. So based upon what you have learned about Burr, what are your conclusions about the trajectory of the Trump administration?
Well, I think, maybe I just compare it to the last administration. I think, if you look at what Trump is doing now, he does have, well, there's problems. He has better people, I think, or more loyal people. We can compare, as bad as maybe Pam Bondi has been, he certainly didn't have an attorney general last time. Bill Barr was not very helpful to him.
He was a CIA. He was still CIA.
Yeah. And Sessions should have never taken the job. If you have that put the administration back basically 3 years, where he should have come clean on, I have a conflict. Every attorney knows if there's a conflict, you're not going to be able to do the case. So for him, he had to know that he have to be disqualified on the whole Russian collusion issue. What I don't understand is how deep those people were, and Trump didn't realize it. Because some of the stuff we now see about the spying and the Russian collusion, Barr knew about and never came out.
He was in on it, and I did a hot wash of Trump after he lost the first time. Well, he didn't really lose. He was cheated. 80 million, 81 million voting for Pedo Joe. No. But the fact remains that the Smartmatic, all the voting machine fraud was still in place for the second election. So it wasn't necessarily too big to rig at all. It was, maybe there was a deal made. Maybe we'll let you do some of your agenda for the American people while we do our agenda.
Well, Trump, I think in that second election was smarter though, or the people around him or whoever decided. I mean, they actually started encouraging, let's vote early. They concentrated in certain places and made sure they had people in the polling places. That first time being the Biden election, I think Trump didn't understand that the mail-in, drop-in ballots were going to really be a problem. And, since I'm in Illinois, I can speak a little bit about election fraud. We've had quite a bit in our history.
A little.
Yeah. A little bit. We've had that. We've had a lot of people convicted that have held office. I don't know if we lead the league, but we're
Chicago.
Yeah.
It's gangster town. It's always been gangster town.
Well, right. And when we went from gangsters to kind of, crooked politicians. And I think for a long time, there's been ways that you could fix elections. And I know of people that have done that where, simple things where on the ballots, who's voted by a certain time. Like they're not in the polling places marking down who's there just for the fun of it, to send them a thank you card later. They could do that with just the official list. They're going out theoretically and getting those people to vote, or they're getting someone to vote under that name. And you don't have to show an ID. You show up at the polling place. If I say I'm Dennis Brennan, I'm Dennis Brennan. And there can be an objection to that, and then I have to prove it. But most people are not going to object to it because they don't even know. So you can bring people in to vote willy-nilly. Now imagine you do this with mail-in votes and the drop-in votes where you drop them in a mailbox over the course of 2 weeks. Generally who's going to vote. The same people tend to vote in elections. There's some people that are registered that never vote. I would say it's been a failing, on our system that no one went back and checked. That there's not much you can do about changing the election once it's over.
Well, again, the DOJ is now suing states that haven't turned over the voting records. It's a little too late, too slow. Just like with Comey, it's purposefully dragging their feet. This is my lane. I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I think it's when you wait too long, the Comey case. Again, you talked about video. You have him testifying twice, I think.
I sent him over there. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so you've got him with contradictory testimony. And where I come from, that's lying to Congress.
That's called entrapment.
So,
but that charge wasn't even brought up. They didn't even bring him up on entrapment.
No, they didn't.
It was just fraudulent statements. Okay. Final question before we wrap up then, based upon what you know from Burr, what do you see? Because I see the next election cycle, which won't have Trump, very desolate, very cynical, especially youth, because, and a lot of us who, have been Trump supporters, and we're very optimistic and we're very excited about his reelection. That, what happened after Burr, and does that correspond to what you think is going to happen after Trump?
And you mean when 2028 comes along, the next presidential election?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's going to depend on how much, J.D. Vance will be the candidate for the Republicans, I think, unless something amazing happens. He's not Trump, but he's got other points that are perhaps better, some that are worse. I think depending on how they do, and you hit on it with the youth vote, all those people that came over, not those of us that voted for Trump in 2016 and have been there, but the people that moved over, a lot of the young people that Charlie Kirk influenced and others did, they were upset with how the economy was, how their opportunity looked like it wasn't there. That hasn't changed for them. And unless that changes, there's going to be a problem in 2028. I think it's up to Trump and his people to really, as Kirk said, it's the moonshot. And it is. You have to do something really big. And I'm not talking about these ideas of here's $2,000. That's silly. I'm talking about where there's real opportunity, where they can buy a house, where they know they can make a decent living working here.
That's a great point. And that's his lane. I think secretly Trump's legacy is to overthrow communism in China the way Reagan overthrew communism in the Soviet Union.
That's going to be a tough fight, although it was doable. It's probably doable because all those types of governments fall eventually. But the problem is, look, that happened, and Reagan, and even to an extent H.W. Bush, did a masterful job We had the Berlin Wall come down, which I never thought would happen. And, most of us probably didn't. But in the end, H.W. Bush was not reelected when he ran. And what was it? The economy, stupid, right? It didn't matter what you did national or internationally. What matters to most people is their own economy. We might have 340 million people, and they say, how's the economy? I always think of the economy as, my economy, my family. How am I doing? And when Bush lost, I didn't really think the economy was bad, but others did. And not seeing that as a politician can be your death nail for reelection.
I have a listener who's saying California Attorney General has portal on the state website for reporting federal agent misconduct. How can we stand up against this? Well, so that's where states are threatening to arrest federal law enforcement agents. That won't happen. Federal law enforcement trumps local law enforcement. That's the problem when the FBI or the CIA come in, when some local state trooper has pulled over child traffickers, and then the FBI and CIA show up, and it's really part of the Finders program. But that is not, that's nothing you have to stand against, as far as I'm concerned. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think the supremacy clause takes over. I think the federal government has already said to some of these states, because they talked about it here in Illinois and California, about, charging them criminally. And, I think it was Tom Homan said, go ahead and try.
Yeah.
And I think the laws.
I think Homan's doing a legitimate job. I think Gabbard's trying to do a legitimate job. I think RFK is trying to do a legitimate job. But for the most part, the Trump cabinet is disastrous.
I think there's some that are doing well. You're right. There's some that are, maybe the jury's out. And for some, you might want to replace them right now. And I'm sure they will. There's how many cabinets serve all 4 years?
Well, moving like pond water.
Yes. I look at it like this is more like a 12-year project. You have to win the presidency in 28 and then again in 32.
Well, maybe you can write a book on and tell us why J.D. Vance has changed his name 3 times.
Yes. Well, some of it's his family issues, but I think JD sounds better than John David, for one. So whatever.
Well, so where can people find your book?
It's available on Amazon.com. It's available at Barnes and Noble online, and soon to be in their stores. It's available on my own website, authordennisbrennan.com.
And the title again is?
DC Swamp Strikes Back, Aaron Burr, Donald Trump, and their similar battles.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dennis. Good talking to you, and best of luck with the book, and have a Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Me too. Okay, so there you have it. And I thought that would be a good corollary to what I was saying about Trump being the first American Jewish president. So remember, I stand with the unashamed. My die is cast, the line crossed. I won't look back. Let up, slow down, back away, or be still. My past is redeemed. My present makes sense. My future is secure. I'm done with small planning, smooth knees, colorless dreams, tamed vision, mundane talking, cheap living, and dwarfed goals. I don't need preeminence, prosperity, position, promotions, plaudits, or popularity. I live by faith, lean on his presence, walk by patience, lift by prayer, and labor by power of Holy Spirit. My face is set. My gait is fast. My goal is heaven. My road narrow. My way rough. My companions few. My guide reliable. My mission clear. I cannot be bought, compromised, detoured, turned away, turned back, deluded, or delayed. I will not flinch in the face of sacrifice, hesitate in the presence of adversity, negotiate at the table of the enemy, ponder at the pool of popularity, or meander in the maze of mediocrity. I won't give up, shut up, let up until I have stayed up, stored up, prayed up, paid up, preached up for the cause of Christ. I'm a disciple of Yeshua. I go till he comes, give till I drop, preach till all know, and work till he stops me. And when he comes for his own, he will have no problem recognizing me. My banner will be clear.